there, greetings from Colombo everybody. I'm Hassan Shazuli and this is Primetime News on News First, where the people come first. Let's start off with a look at the stories making headlines tonight.
Nine new cabinet ministers appointed. Manusha and Harin from the SJB and Namal de Silva from the SLFP joins the cabinet. Accepting cabinet positions is not the stance of the party. Will take disciplinary action against party members. A statement from the SJB and the SLFP. 21st Amendment to be tabled in Parliament on Monday. Dual citizens may lose their parliamentary seat. G7 countries pledge support to Sri Lanka. A shipment carrying petrol arrives in the country. Distribution to recommence. Gas cylinders released to the market.
Hello there, welcome to the news. In your lead story tonight, 9 new cabinet ministers were sworn in before President Gotabaya Rajapaksa today.
Namal de Silva was sworn in as the Minister of Ports, Naval and Aviation Services. Keheli Rambukwalla as Minister of Health. Dr. Ramesh Patirana as Minister of Plantation Industries. Tiran Alas as Minister of Public Security. Nalin Fernando as Minister of Trade, Commerce and Food Security. Dr. Rajapaksa as Minister of Justice, Prison Affairs and Constitutional Reforms. And Susil Premajayantha as Minister of Education. 2 parliamentarians of the Samagi Janabalawegya were also sworn in today. Harin Fernando was sworn in as Minister of Tourism and Land. And Manusha Nanayakara as Minister of Labour and Foreign Employment. Some ministers who were sworn in today assumed duties under the new ministerial portfolios. Ministers Manusha Nanayakara and Harin Fernando assumed duties this afternoon. Minister Susil Premajayantha assumed duties at the Ministry of Education. Minister of Justice, Prison Affairs and Constitutional Reforms, Rajapaksa said the 21st Amendment to the Constitution will be presented to Parliament soon.
We
prepared the draft of the 21st Amendment to the Constitution today. They are hoping to present it to the Cabinet of Ministers on Monday. Once it is approved, steps will be taken to present it to Parliament. That means they will lose their parliamentary seats. Just like the court removed Geeta Kumarasinghe from her parliamentary seat, when the amendments are passed with a court order, they will lose their parliamentary seat. That is one of the objectives of this amendment.
Nalin Fernando also assumed duties as the Minister of Trade, Commerce and Food Security today.
Harin Fernando and Manusha Nanayakara explained the reasons why they accepted the ministerial portfolios under the current government. This was during a media briefing held today.
This is a non-partisan government. Right now we have become independent. First, I would like to say that Sir has failed and that this is a curse. I will say that without any fear. I am still of the stance that the President should resign. However, when Sajid Premadasa didn't accept this challenge, I was wondering if there will be a country left in 6 months for an election. The supporters must know that we are doing this for the Samagi Janabalawegya. I am still representing the Samagi Janabalawegya. I am saddened that I had to take this decision like this. We struggled inside our party for 5 days, but we realized that there isn't a person who is ready to accept this responsibility. A talented sailor can only show his skills during a storm. This is an economic storm. Anyone can become the captain of a ship in calm waters. We are all in the same boat. When facing this storm, we must identify skilled sailors who can guide us to the shore. I personally believe that if we are doing politics on the side now, that will be against my conscience. We are not switching sides to Ranil Wickremesinghe's camp. If someone is thinking narrowly and saying that I accepted bribes to do this, they cannot level that allegation against me. Everything I have is what my father earned. I never even had the chance to earn. I believe Ranil Wickremesinghe gave us these positions for us to show our colours. We will attempt to do this in the next 3 months. If we feel that Basil Rajapaksa is obstructing us and not allowing this government to progress, we will become independent, regardless of the SJB accepting us or not. Sir has failed. He has failed in his second year as well. We want to rebuild the country and not to help Sir pass. He might be wanting to leave office now. He may be looking for a way out. Instead of creating the space for him to leave, I would like to ask you, what is the point of shouting from the outside? We represent the proposals brought forward by the protesters, the Bar Association of Sri Lanka and the Mahanayaka Theras. The majority of the party accepted our stance, but they were late in making that decision. We are making this decision while being true to our conscience. The crisis in the country is a shortage of dollars. The two of us took over the main job of solving this dollar crisis. On one side the tourism sector and on the other side to bring in foreign revenue.
අනිත් පැත්තෙන් විදේශ විනිමය ගෙන එන එක.
දැන් ඔබතුමාලා දෙදෙනාම කිව්වා ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂ මොරෙක් මංකොල්ලකාරයෙක් වංචනිකයෙක් කියලා කිව්වා. නිකන් අර හිරිකිතයක්වත් දරුන්නේ නැද්ද ගිහලා එතුමා ගාවට ගිහලා මේක ගන්නකොට.
අපිරිය හිතුණා. හිරිකිතයක් නෙමෙයි අපිරිය හිතුණා.
I felt disgusted. However, I am even more disgusted to watch the country collapse before our eyes. These arguments are good for people who are sometimes ashamed and scared of accepting positions. We don't subscribe to those ideas. We have the backbone to walk up to Gotabaya and speak to him directly. Ranil Wickremesinghe undertook this task. Can we obstruct him? We will have a meeting in about a month and then we will speak about our performance. Those are very feeble arguments. As a senior journalist, do not raise feeble questions like that. This is not a circus. The country is facing a crisis. We will not try to create a circus out of this right now. Against a backdrop where 9 new ministers were appointed today, many international factions have come forward to extend their support to Sri Lanka. The group of 7 economic powers, or the G7, have pledged their support to efforts in providing debt relief to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka defaulted on a $78 million sovereign bond from the international market yesterday. Fitch Ratings downgraded Sri Lanka's long-term foreign currency issuer default rating to restricted default from C. It means that Sri Lanka has an unsecured payment default but has not entered into bankruptcy filings, liquidation or other formal winding up procedures. Speaking at a meeting in Germany yesterday, leaders of the G7 countries said they, quote, stand ready to support the Paris Club's efforts in restructuring Sri Lanka's debt in line with its principles, unquote. The G7 is an organization of the world's 7 largest advanced economies, which denominate global trade and the international financial system. It consists of Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom and the United States. In addition, the European Union is a non-enumerated member. The G7 countries provide majority of the support to the IMF and accounts for over 50% of global net worth. The Paris Club is a group of officials from major creditor countries whose role is to find coordinated and sustainable solutions to the payment difficulties experienced by debtor countries. Meanwhile, the International Monetary Fund says it remains committed to help Sri Lanka to overcome the current crisis.
Lots of interest in Sri Lanka, to which I can say we are concerned, of course, about the current economic crisis in Sri Lanka and especially the hardships being endured by the people of Sri Lanka, and especially many of those people poor and vulnerable. So we are clearly monitoring the political and economic developments very closely. An IMF team has been engaging in technical discussions on the authorities' request for an IMF IMF-supported program, so they have asked. And there's currently a virtual IMF staff mission engaged in those technical talks with the Sri Lankan authorities, and we expect that to continue, that mission to continue through May 24. So we remain committed to help Sri Lanka in line with the IMF's policies, and will engage with stakeholders in support of a timely resolution of the crisis that is being faced there.
Addressing a media briefing yesterday, the central bank governor explained the next step with the International Monetary Fund.
Where they are looking at overall macro fiscal framework for next couple of years. They have shared all the information. We have shared with them both fiscal policy and the monetary policy and other structural reforms. We have shared with them our intentions of policy reforms that we want to implement in the next, say, 6 months or 12 months. What is the situation? This is our own policy. And then they will assess their policies, and then the next step for them to do what they call debt sustainability analysis based on our policy package, and see at what level the debt is sustainable, so that then we can then what are the adjustments those are needed to bring debt into sustainable level, the first one, and then what kind of contribution or that can be made by the creditors to bring our debt onto sustainable level. So those are the important things that we have to work on. So the staff, IMF staff and our staff are working very closely. We are hoping to continue that technical process going forward. I think probably tomorrow or end of the mission, the staff will make a statement, I hope.
Meanwhile, Japan is giving essential medicine to Sri Lanka through UNICEF. The contribution of $1.5 million will procure medicine for over 1.2 million people.
Speaking to Sky News yesterday, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe spoke about the economic situation in Sri Lanka.
Well, we are feeling the rise in the price of fuel. We are feeling that, and we know it will go higher. Our main concern also is that we have not had fertilizer for cultivation, and this coming season, the rice cultivation season, will not have the full production. Therefore, from about August onwards, there is a possibility of a food crisis in Sri Lanka. That's about the time that the global food crisis will also take place, and we have to see how we survive till about March next year.
And what is your message, Prime Minister, in the short term to potential international partners that could come to your aid on a week when you've had to miss interest payments due on your debt?
Well, we were in default anyway, and we didn't have the money to pay. We have to acknowledge that. I feel ashamed about it, but nevertheless, this is reality. We've been engaging our partners, and they've responded well. We've been engaging with the IMF, but as you know, it takes time. India has been the quickest to respond. We've had money from them, which has enabled us to carry on. But we think in the next few months there will be responses by the other donors.
And if the current administration is to blame, then have we seen enough punishment for them? The president is still in power. His brother, the Prime Minister, may have stepped down, but their family has essentially run the country for 2 decades. Should the president resign?
Well, that's a controversy, because the people at Galface, all the youths, of the view that president should resign. On the other hand, the Bar Association of the view that the executive presidency should be abolished. They do not mention anything about the president resigning. I have suggested that once we pass the 21st Amendment, then all party leaders and the president should have a discussion and come to some arrangement on the future course.
At the moment, would you say it's safe for tourists to come and visit Sri Lanka?
Well, those who want to have an exciting time could come here, and maybe they could even take part in the demonstrations. They could hold placards which says for the president of Sri Lanka to go home, or you could hold a placard asking the prime minister of your country to go home. All that is option that's available.
Well, I mean, it's good to see you being light-hearted, but it was actually a serious question. I mean, tourism is an important part of any emerging market's income. You're not encouraging people to visit, or are you? I mean, it's a genuine question.
It's not that we are not discouraging people from visiting, but we understand with the shortage of foreign exchange and some of the demonstration that is going on, and the shortage of essentials, that they may not visit Sri Lanka at this time.
Now, the fuel crisis is continuing to affect people of Sri Lanka at present. Lanka IOC says fuel will only be sold to vehicles at its filling stations. The company says petrol won't be sold to people with cans, containers or bottles. Now, meanwhile, there's no end in sight for the queues at filling stations. There were long lines of vehicles at filling stations across the country today as well.
Long queues were seen at fuel stations in many areas across the country today.
Pope committee, Ranil's committee, we paid for the gas. Yesterday they said gas was coming. Day before they said it's coming. We have got 100 cylinders here. 100 cylinders. There are more than 300 in the queue. We are on the road. We should be contributing to the economy for the country to go forward. We are always standing on queues. See the people going for work, housewives without cooking, small children without going to school, taxi drivers also here, and this is the reality of the country. What shame this is. Waste of time, human resource, standing in the queue. This is the contribution, my contribution today for the economy.
A group of police officers who attempted to obtain fuel in cans at the Dulgama filling station had to return empty-handed after the people objected to it. Fuel was not distributed to any fuel station in Kandy this morning. Only one fuel station in Kandy had received fuel stocks by this evening. Several three-wheel drivers had come to the fuel station carrying the fuel tank of the three-wheelers. Fuel was distributed only to employees attached to essential services at the Gaul Food Cooperative gas outlet today. A heated situation was reported when government servants were seen in a separate queue to purchase fuel. The police officers then removed their motorbikes from the area. Fuel was only distributed at the Lanka IOC filling station in the Ampara town. A heated situation was reported when government servants were seen in a separate queue to purchase fuel. The Sipetco filling station in Kurunegala received stocks of fuel this evening. Our correspondent reported that people have been in the queue to obtain fuel since early this morning. The Lanka IOC filling station in Kurunegala received a stock of petrol this morning.
Unloading of the fuel tankers that arrived in Sri Lankan waters began last morning, and the distribution of fuel across Sri Lanka began today. Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara made a statement in Parliament yesterday saying that payments were made to the fuel tankers a day before, and unloading began last morning. Speaking in Parliament yesterday, Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe said that the Sri Lankan government is capable of providing fuel without interruptions until the second week of June. The Private Bowser Owners Association also said that the distribution of petrol across the island began last night.
ये रात्रि
petrol. They unloaded the fuel tanker last night. It contains 19,000 metric tons of 92-octane petrol and 9,000 metric tons of 95-octane petrol, which is a grand total of 28,000 metric tons of petrol. We began the distribution process last night. We have been distributing diesel to all fuel stations across the island as well.
Long queues of people waiting to purchase gas cylinders were also seen across the country. People demanding Laugh's gas cylinders took to the streets in Dehiwala today.
කහපාට ගෑස් වලට කිසි කෙනෙක් කතා කරන්නේ නැහැ. එතකොට මේ සිලින්ඩර ටික අරගෙන හරි සිලින්ඩරේ වටිනාකම අපිට දෙන්න ඕනේ. එහෙම දෙන්නෙත් නැහැ කම්පැනියෙන්.
මේ ගෑස් තියලා අපි මොනවා කරන්නද බෝල් ගානද මේවා තියාගෙන. ජීවත් මොන අපිට කහපාට ගෑස් නේද? ලංකාවේ නිල් පාට ගෑස් විතර තියෙන ලංකාවේ කොතනකවත් නේද කහපාට ගෑස් ගේන්නේ.
This was the situation at Electro gas outlets in Dehiwala today.
අපිට ඉන්සුලින් ගහනවා උදේ ඉඳන් ඉන්සුලින් උත් නැහැ කණ්ඩත් නැහැ. රේද උදේ 4:00 ඉඳන් අපි ඉන්නවා. එල්ලි වෙනකම්ම ඉන්නවා. අපි මෙතන යන්නේ අපිට කණ්ඩ
This was the situation in Kahawa, Ambalangoda.
අප්පච්චි කියන්නේ අපේ ගෙදර තාත්තනේ අපිට කන්න බොන්න දෙන්නේ. නමුත් රටේ අප්පච්චිට බැරුණා මේ දරුවෝ ටිකට කන්න බොන්නයි. බෙහෙත් හේත් ටික පොඩි දරුවෙකුට පෙනඩෝල් සිරප් ටිකක් ගන්න තැනක් නැහැ.
Although a lorry carrying gas cylinders arrived at the gas outlet, the stock was not enough for the crowd that had gathered at the location. Another group held a protest opposite the gas outlet in Ambalangoda. Police had to intervene in order to solve the matter. The police also intervened in the distributing process at gas outlets in Badulla. We had issues in unloading the consignment of 2,000 metric tons of gas that reached Sri Lanka on Friday due to inclement weather. Although we planned to distribute 80,000 gas cylinders, we were only able to distribute 8,000 gas cylinders. But we distributed 35,000 gas cylinders in bowsers across the country. We had to distribute a majority of them in areas out of Colombo because there were lorries that had arrived from those areas a few days ago. Therefore, 30,000 were sent outstation and 5,000 were distributed in Colombo. Today we plan to distribute 50,000 gas cylinders across the country.
While the shortage of fuel and cooking gas continue to affect the people of Sri Lanka, there is a shortage of medicine as well. Now, this coupled with the rising cost of living in the country has made the daily lives of ordinary Sri Lankans a struggle. This story is from Hambantota.
K.G. Jinadasa, his wife and 3 children call this small hut their home. Jinadasa used to be a daily wage earner. Apart from that, he used to cultivate to secure some additional income. Due to the economic crisis, Jinadasa does not have any work. The eldest son of the family attends school amidst all of these difficulties. Their second son is battling a kidney ailment. Given today's situation, medicine has become unaffordable. Treatment for this boy's kidney ailment has become an expense his parents cannot afford anymore.
News First, with the people.
And with that, we go in for a short commercial break. Stay with News First. We will be right back.
මොකද මහත්තයා මේ නෑ මේ ගෙදර සිංක් එකේ අයි මහත්තයා ස්ලෝන් නෙවෙයිද දැම්මේ හදිස්සියට බාලා පයිප්පයක් දැම්මේ නැද්ද මුදලාලි ඊයේ පෙරේදා කඩේ රිපෙයාර් කරන්න ගෙනාපු ගම් චුට්ටක් මේ වගේ ප්‍රශ්න වලට හොඳම විසඳුම ස්ලෝන් ගම් චුට්ටක් හැබැයි ඉක්මනින් දාගන්න ස්ලෝන් පයිප්පයක්
ස්ලෝන් ගම් චුට්ටා හැම ගෙදරකම සිටිය යුතු ජලනල කාර්මිකයා දැන් ළඟම ග්‍රොසරියෙන් මිලදී ගන්න.
Welcome back to the news, and we start off in Parliament, where opposition lawmaker Shanakyan Rasmanikam has criticised Ranil Wickremesinghe for accepting the post of Prime Minister.
මේ මන්ත්‍රීවරු ජනතාව පාවා දුන්නා වගේ අද ගෝල් ෆේස් අරගලේ පාවා දීලා තියෙනවා රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ අගමැතිතුමා.
Just like these parliamentarians betrayed the people, Ranil Wickremesinghe has betrayed the people at the struggle in Galface. Just to realize his dream of becoming the Prime Minister for the 6th time, he has not only betrayed them, he has betrayed all the people of Sri Lanka. I am saying this because it was clear to us that Gotabaya Rajapaksa was about to resign. The entire country knows this. He was pushed to a corner. What did the Samagi Jana Balawegya do then? We respect the Samagi Jana Balawegya for staying true to their policies. The Samagi Jana Balawegya said that the people of this country are asking for Gota to go home. They said, give us a date when Gotabaya Rajapaksa will resign and then we will take over the government. They are a party with policies. The JVP said that they too are ready to take over the government, but the president must resign first because that is what the people are demanding. But what did Ranil Wickremesinghe do? He accepted the position of Prime Minister without any conditions. You took up this position not for any other reason but to protect the Rajapaksas. I will say that without any fear. You took up the position to save the Rajapaksa family who was backed against a corner. I would like to make a request to you. You made a statement recently to the people of this country highlighting the true situation of the country. You must now tell the people the truth about the deal that you struck with the Rajapaksas. If you don't want to say this, I can reveal those details here. The first deal is, you created the environment for Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who was hiding in a bunker, to come out into the open. Secondly, you created the environment for Namal Rajapaksa and Mahinda Rajapaksa, who were hiding in a navy camp in Trincomalee, to come to Parliament. You were the one who created the opportunity during the vote on the position of Deputy Speaker for Basil Rajapaksa to show the people of this country that he still has power over the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna.
ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොදුජන පෙරමුණ මගේ අතේ තාම තියෙන්නේ කියන එක රටට පෙන්වන්න අවස්ථාව බහදලා.
The Sri Lanka Freedom Party and the Samagi Jana Balawegya say that both have not decided to take over any ministerial portfolios.
A few parliamentarians belonging to the Sri Lanka Freedom Party took oaths as ministers today. That was against the party's decision. We had not taken any decision as a party when it comes to obtaining ministerial portfolios. The Central Working Committee decided the party will support the present government through parliamentary votes when necessary, but we will not obtain any ministerial portfolios. Joining the government is against the decision reached by the Samagi Jana Balawegya. We responded positively to the government's decision while remaining in the opposition. Our leader Sajith Premadasa has already informed this in writing that we will even support providing medicines to hospitals. I would like to tell only one thing to the members that left the party. We will take disciplinary measures against them under the guidance of the party leader.
The General Secretary of the Samagi Jana Balawegya issued a statement this evening citing that the party membership of Harin Fernando and Manushanana Kara has been suspended as a disciplinary measure.
Parliamentarian partly Champagaranavaga expressed the following views today. There seems to be a certain hope for Ranil Wickremesinghe. The international community, particularly the Western countries, will help him. Japan will assist him. Therefore, the public seem to have trust in him. If we can obtain relief from countries like Japan without any political conditions, purely based on his ties, the country would be benefited greatly. We have announced that loans obtained through bilateral means cannot be settled after the 12th of April. We have informed Japan that we will not pay back more than $3 billion we owe them. We informed China that we will not settle a loan worth more than $7 billion. We informed India that we will not pay back a loan worth more than $4 billion. Therefore, it is difficult to obtain new loans with the existing loans. Accordingly, India and Japan will assist us to a certain extent. India is continuing to provide relief, but we can see that there are political conditions that come with those ties. There are certain economical conditions. Therefore, fuel, medicine, gas and food shortages won't disappear all of a sudden with the arrival of large funds. Today the country is bankrupt. We need a stable political environment to overcome this situation. Even though we will not accept ministerial portfolios, we will allow the necessary restructuring to take place. Make the judiciary independent, make the police independent, make the state sector services independent and make the elections independent. These legal conditions must be passed in Parliament.
The peaceful protests at Golf Phase opposite the President's office in Colombo entered its 42nd day today. The protesters are demanding President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to step down.
Several press conferences were held at the Rotagogama protest site today. 89 brotherhood organizations spoke at a media briefing held at the protest site. They attacked Mainagogama. They attempted to attack Golf Phase. We took control of the situation. Even though there are more than enough evidence, they are reluctant in investigating them. But they are prosecuting the protesters quickly. The conspirators behind this attack must be arrested first.
The Church of Ceylon has issued a statement. They have expressed disappointment and concern over the events that are unfolding in the country after Mahinda Rajapaksa stepped down from the post of Prime Minister.
The statement by the Church of Ceylon says that the country has not experienced a system change but merely a change in the Prime Minister. The statement goes on to note that the cabinet remains almost the same, the policies are as usual, and that in the face of a crisis the Parliament was embroiled in an almost quote-unquote farcical parliamentary battle over the post of Deputy Speaker. It adds that the conduct of Parliament during the last few days demonstrated the validity of the claims of young protesters and the civil society. The Church of Ceylon demanded the following from the President and the current government. The demands include the resignation of the President, the institution of a genuine multi-party interim government, enacting political and constitutional reform that enable educated and respected people to enter Parliament and to ensure economic revival, the public declaration of all assets and liabilities of all members of Parliament.
The Criminal Investigations Department is currently recording a statement from Parliamentarian Namal Rajapaksa regarding the assault that was carried out on peaceful protesters at Golf Phase on the 9th of this month. Parliamentarian Namal Rajapaksa arrived at the CID at 4 this evening. The suspect, arrested for burning an army bus in Mirihana, has been remanded until the 27th of this month. He was produced before the Nugegoda Magistrates Court today.
Parliamentarian Namal Rajapaksa and Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe expressed the following views regarding the protests taking place in the country today. Houses were attacked with clubs, swords and petrol bombs. Regardless of which party they represent, the law must be enforced against them. If the law is being manipulated in disguise of protests, the entire state system will collapse. We saw how the police was attacked. The main police officer in charge of the Colombo district was attacked. He sustained severe injuries to his head.
The demonstration that you have shown now is by a militant youth group who generally carries out at least 5 to 6 demonstrations a year, and certainly their aim is to ensure the water cannons are used on them. But that does not mean that there are no protests in Sri Lanka. They are small protests run by people at the moment when they can't bear the burden any longer.
UNICEF representative for Sri Lanka Christian Scooge and Deputy Representative Emma Brigham visited opposition leaders Sajid Premadasa today. This was at the opposition leader's office in Colombo.
They held a discussion on the problems faced by children due to the current crisis. Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa requested the delegation to provide necessary support to rebuild Sri Lanka.
Thank you. Pleasure. Good pleasure. Doctor, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And with that, we cross over for another short commercial break. We will be right back.
ගලන මේ සතුට සුරක්ෂිත කරන්නේ Ceylon Inside. Ceylon ජීවයයි ජලයේ ජීවිතේ.
Welcome back to the news. Now, there are warnings of possible food shortages in Sri Lanka in the coming months, and now this has created doubts on whether Sri Lanka is ready to face the challenge. But as far as farmers are concerned, those farmers who feed the country say things are not so favorable for them.
It has been 12 days since water was released to paddy fields in Polonnaruwa through the Wickremesinghe. However, the cultivations of these farmers here have been stalled due to the fuel and fertilizer crisis. Traditionally, cultivation activities of the Kaudulla, Giritale, Minneria and Wickremesinghe settlements begin simultaneously. However, cultivation has only begun in the Kaudulla and Wickremesinghe settlements this time.
කාබනික පොහොරවලට ගිහලා කරපු වින්නයියේ ප්‍රතිඵලය තමයි. රන්දිර වන්දිත් නැහැ. මහින්දානන්දත් නැහැ. වෙච්ච දෙයක් නැහැ.
රටේ ජනතාවටත් බඩගින්න කියන එක දැනිච්ච දවසට තමයි ආහාර ගියක් එනවා කියලා තේරෙන්නේ. එතකන් මේ අපි කිව්වට තේරුම් ගන්න නැහැ මේ.
Barren fields can be seen in Nachadua and Kabithigolava in Anuradhapura. Usually during this time of the year, these fields are ready for the Yala season.
මේ මාසේ 15 20 වෙනකොට වපුර අවසන් වෙන්න ඕනේ. දැන් මෙතනින් පස්සේ වපුරනේ වට සියලු ඒවට කුමිහානි අධික ලෙස එනවා.
Farmers in Mahavilachia who cultivated amidst numerous hardships received organic fertilizer yesterday. However, these farmers pointed out that this fertilizer is substandard.
මේ තියන්නේ එවාප කොම්පෝස්ට් පොර. දැන් මේ දාන්නේ පිරිසුදු ජලයට. මේ තියෙන ගල් කැටලේ පස්. ඇයි මෙහෙම මේ දුප්පත් අහිංසක ගොවියා රවට්ටන්නේ? අර වෙලි ගොඩ මේ
Water was released to paddy fields in the Ampara district on the 15th of April. Close to 62,000 acres of paddy fields have been cultivated. Even though 35 days have passed, fertilizer has not yet been provided.
දෙනවා කිව්වට කොම්පෝස්ට් පොර ඇටයක්වත් මේ අපේ පැත්ත කාටවත් දීලා නැහැ. පොර දෙවෙනි පාර ගහන්න කිට්ටුවේ දැන් 14 කරන්න පොර ගහන්න ඕන. මනාවත් නැහැ පොර ටික නැහැ ඩීසල් ටික නැහැ කිසිම දෙයක් නැහැනේ.
මේ වෙනකොට යල් කන්න ඉවර වෙයි.
By now the Yala season is about to conclude, but this government has not provided the fertilizer that they promised. Only 30% of the 120,000 hectares of land have been used during this Yala season. Please resign if you are not going to give the compensation or fertilizer that you promised to these farmers.
දෙනවා කියන පොහොර දෙන්න බැරි නම් බහැලා යන්න. දෙනවා කියපු වන්දිකෝ. සත පහක් වන්දි දුන්නේ නැහැ.
Where is the compensation that they promised? They did not give any compensation. We would like to point out to this corrupt government that the farming community will not be further deceived by your lies. There is no agriculture minister in the country. This country does not need a government that acts like this on the brink of a food shortage.
තියාගෙන මේ මෙහෙම වැඩ කරන තකතිරු ආණ්ඩුවක් ඕනේ නැහැ මේ රටට.
As we highlighted in that report, people across Sri Lanka are facing the brunt of the economic crisis that seems to be getting worse by the day. But however, parliamentarians, they're debating about the damage caused to their properties during the unrest that broke out in the country last week.
තීරණය කරගෙන හිටියේ කවදා හෝ මින් නිවසත් අක්කර තුනක ඉඩමත් කලායතනයක්
I had planned to establish an art center on the 3-acre land that my house is situated on. To the people who attacked my house, I would like to say that you attacked the house that was built for you. Why did you smash the international trophies that I had won? I will never be able to get them back again. Why did you destroy my trophies? I would like to ask you, did you not have a mother?
මාන ටික කුඩු කරලා ගියේ මම අහන්න ලෑස්ති පුතේ උඹලට හිටියේ නැද්ද අම්මා කෙනෙක් කියලා.
මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ මහත්තයා මීට අවුරුදු දෙකක්.
If Mahinda Rajapaksa resigned 1.5 years ago, people would have built a statue of him at every junction and worshipped him. Why didn't he leave? He didn't leave because Basil Rajapaksa would have then taken his place. Let me know if a residence of Basil Rajapaksa was torched. The house in Malwana was confiscated.
මල්වාන ගෙදර රාජසන්තක ගියක්.
මැදමුල්ලේ ගෙදරත් බැසිල් මහත්තයාගේ තමයි.
ඒ නිසා මේ ප්‍රහාරය දීලා එල්ලවලා පුටේ වාඩි වෙන්න යනකොට තමයි.
It was when this attack was launched and he was chased away that Grusha came carrying a child to save this country.
නාතාලියාගේ දරුවා අරගෙන ඉන්නේ ඔය. මේ නාතාලියාගේ දරුවා නෙමෙයි. මේ නාතාලියාගේ දරුවා නෙමෙයි. මේ ඇවිල්ලා ශිරන්ති රාජපක්ෂ නෝනාගේ.
Namal Rajapaksa is the eldest child of Shiranti Rajapaksa. Remember that Ranil Wickremesinghe has taken over this contract. He said that Basil Rajapaksa suffered no losses, but the residence in Madamulana was owned by Basil Rajapaksa. You can't speak like the person from that village while sitting on the chair.
නෑ මම මූලාසනේ ඉඳගෙන බොරුවක් කියනකොට
ඔතුමා කිව්වට කමන්නේ. මූලාසනේ කියන්න බෑ.
නෑ නෑ බැසිල් රාජපක්ෂ මැතිතුමාගේ
The statue of dear Rajapaksa, who is the father of Basil Rajapaksa, was torn down. As a person from that district, I cannot sit here and act as if I don't know anything. You are Ajit Rajapaksa, so when we speak about the Rajapaksas, it is understandable that a Rajapaksa is offended. Another phase of the Divi Savya program to distribute dry rations among families in need was held in the Polonnaruwa district today.
The Divi Savya program, sponsored by LOLC Holdings, aims to support low-income families in many parts of Sri Lanka. Today is the 10th day of the Divi Savya program aimed at supporting the low-income families. Two separate teams distributed essential goods to people living in 8 Gramaniltari divisions in the Polonnaruwa district today.
Well, you're up to date with the latest stories here on News First. More news follows on our website at www.newsfirst.lk is the address. I've been Hassan Shazali. Good night, take care, and God bless.